We are Maria Dimitrudi, Ana Beatriz Fernandez, Maria Inés Vachés, and we're going to talk to you about modular architecture. Modular architecture can be understood as the design of any system composed of basic units that we call modules interlocking between each other and repeating in an open plan, allowing flexibility for the design. The opposite of modular architecture would be integrated architecture, in which no clear division exists between components. Modular Vernacular. The concept of repeating a module in an organized way can be found in vernacular and traditional architecture. One example are the chabonos in the Amazonian or the Japanese houses, where a series of modules are repeated in order to create either settlements or housing units. Ancient civilization had all also their own approach to modular architecture, which can be found from Egyptian and Mesopotamian temples all the way to Greek or Roman temples. Modular logic can also be found in mosques and cathedrals, in all kinds of temples and housing throughout history in classical and modern times. With the Industrial Revolution and the popularization of steel structures, modular components were easily produced, transported, and mounted. Modern movements, such as the Metabolist in Japan and the Bauhaus in Europe, found solutions with prefabricated concrete modules, which maximizes the production of housing as if it was an assembly line. Parallelly, came some movements of anti-industrialization. With the movements of arts and crafts, there was an intention for architecture to head towards craftsmanship and art, freeing it from the classical patterns and from the mass production of the industrial era. Later on the 20th century, the deconstructivist movement searched for a break on the modularity and stiffness of previous architecture movements. Nowadays, modular architecture positions itself as one of the most sustainable solutions in building matters, as it involves a great deal of prior planning and preparation. Before the construction, there is a significant cut on expenses and waste on construction site. Nevertheless, the modernist tendency of reinforced concrete and some new slow-degrading materials is still dominant over other low-impact materials.
What we consider as module, according to Britannica, modular architecture is an arbitrary unit adopted to regulate the dimensions, proportions, or constructions of the parts of the building. This concept begins in antiquity by using the column as the main module of the construction design process. The module in Vitruvius theory appears as a crucial tool and method to achieve understanding of a proportional concept. In Japanese architecture, the rice carpet, called tatami, was the main module to give proportions that determined the room sizes. Another example from a vernacular architecture is the Sabono communal dwelling of the Yanomami tribes in Venezuela and Brazil. This circular construction is based on a module unit by which it is possible to create a general diameter of around 80 meters. In the modern movement, modules were used throughout the design process to organize the proportioning and dimensioning of the plans. Probably the most comprehensive system imagined in the 20th century was the modular of Le Corbusier. This proportional system was a product of an interdisciplinary collaboration with historians and mathematicians and referring to statistical measurements of the human body. Module nowadays is mostly connected with prefabrication system that serves to assemble the building in the construction site. Concrete, either precast or precessed, is frequently used to produce modules that can be assembled in a variety of designs. Although modular design is deeply connected with architecture throughout history, the prefabrication modular system is an outcome of the industrial era. Louis Kahn, with his architectural interest directed in aesthetics and strong sensorial experiences in built environment, approached the modular and prefabrication design in a way to achieve a creative solution. He transferred the prefabrication model from the construction industry to a more tectonic and architectural context. A phrase used constantly by him and sum up his view was, "What does a brick want to be?" Module, as we realize, is a vague term. The module, as is indicated by its architectural history, can be expanded to a spatial generator or reveal a platform that various disciplines can interact. It can achieve flexible outcome liberated from standardized approaches. Thinking in a context of limited resources, the module can incorporate vernacular architecture and social parameters in a constructive way. Taking into consideration the previous, we have noticed three different categories, three different scales of the modular architecture. To begin with, an interesting dimension of modular architecture is the ability to form an independent construction system with various different alternations. Mostly industrial examples are dealing with this aspect, but important vernacular translations appear often as well. The project Vonregal by Far Architects is an example of how precast concrete elements, common in the industrial warehouse-style buildings, can bridge important challenges with high architecture value. They use the prefabricated system with long-spanning TT beams that can support a precast ceiling without the need of interior structural elements, achieving a flexible interior configuration and low construction cost. A second example is the housing project VDC by Samari located in Portugal. This project uses a construction system named GOMOS, which derived its principle by the logic of the prefabricated modules used to assemble the conventional sewer pipes. Following this logic, GOMOS prefabricated system consists of precast section modules that are joined in the construction site to create a continuous shell. Last example in this scale is the sandbank house by MMA located in South Africa. This project uses the EcoBeam sandbank structural system by which sandbags are used as a component to fill a wooden frame. It is proposed as an affordable, green and adaptable modular solution, while a collective procedure emerges as it is a friendly construction system for inexperienced people as well. The second scale is modular building systems, where modular architecture consists of expanded spatial components. The modules form small units which by multiplication, packing and links shape the final building. It is worth mentioning that the common ground that shares this kind of projects is the intention to include urban and communitarian principles in their design. The Habitat 67 in Montreal by Moshe Safdie, for example, is shaped by a composition through stacking of a basic spatial concrete module that consists the main living unit. He tried to achieve two contradictory goals: first, a low construction cost by the use of prefabricated elements, and second, to emerge a new typological housing approach where suburban qualities can be transferred into high-dense urban regions. Another project is the Gando Teacher Housing by Care Architects in Burkina Faso. The vernacular housing typology of this region affects this project, as the houses are formed by a sequence of dueling modules that can be combined in a flexible way, creating diverse sizes depending on the inhabitants' needs. The site configuration follows the traditional Burkinabe compound by using arc layout to arrange the 6 units. Finally, the last scale of modular architecture we notice is referring in the landscape design, where modules used to create new topography, or via bottom-up approaches, modules shape urban furniture and artificial landscape, aiming to form a collective public space. Those projects use modularity as a means to emerge a topography where social interactions and sensorial experiences are the main object.
Modular vernacular architecture in Cuba can be traced back to the traditional Taino villages who built their dwellings using only the available local resources. The repetition of natural material modules allowed their building structure type called bohío to be scaled as both a regular Taino dwelling and baker buildings called caney that housed royals or ceremonial temples, which are then also repeated as modules to form a village. In the beginning of the Cuban Revolution, the mass production of housing was a social necessity. Therefore, the INAF assumed modular architecture solutions in an attempt to reduce construction time. Housing units and vertical circulation nucleuses were used as modules that are rotated, repeated, and overlapped in different manners, composing multiple variants that help minimize the monotony that can affect massive construction projects. Escuelas Nacionales de Arte are among the foremost examples of this period of time for their high architectural and design quality. The use of material modules such as brick and terracotta tile attempt bold construction to form the workshop modules that are then repeated across each school, connected by a series of galleries reminiscent of a traditional tropical city, act as a set of guiding design principles. The community of Las Terrazas stands out as one of the most interesting projects in Cuba that makes use of modular architecture. To save on construction costs, prefabricated concrete internal and external walls were used. The houses were built purely on Sandino. Single-family homes and multifamily buildings are formed by scattered or clustered dwelling units, articulated by circulations and community spaces in the multifamily buildings. Cuba's mild subtropical climate and its wide spectrum of natural building materials offer broad possibilities for non-prefabricated modular low-tech designs that assimilate vernacular codes, creating quick and affordable housing solutions that do not require high degrees of skills or tools and machinery. However, these solutions require a higher degree of attention and maintenance to ensure its durability. Modular prefabricated construction, however, allows to drastically reduce construction time along with cost. This solution can allow for dwellings or businesses such as hotels to be constructed in a short period of time, Unfortunately, the availability of higher-tech building materials continues to be challenged by the embargo, so the application of industrialized modular architecture would be reduced to large-scale projects.